How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with your boys, Alex and Ryan. If you're new to the channel, make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. We got daily Yankee content coming out every single day, covering all the games. And of course, when the regular season rolls around, we'll be even more detailed and obviously summarizing all the things you need to know about this team. But today we're talking about Frankie Montas, and this is a player who we had a lot of high expectations and hopes for when he was acquired last year by the Yankees at the deadline from the Oakland Athletics. But he just came out this morning and said something that's really kind of rubbed Ryan and I the wrong way. And I think if you haven't heard yet, you're going to be kind of pissed off because this is a player who was supposed to come in from Oakland and make an immediate impact. He was supposed to be an impact player during the postseason, down the stretch, really help this Yankee starting rotation. And ultimately, he didn't do that because of a shoulder injury. Now, we thought the shoulder injury was something that he sustained while he was with the Yankees, but now we're learning that Frankie Montas was injured when they acquired him. Now, someone on Twitter brought up an interesting concept like, they acquired Harrison Bader when he was injured, but we knew Bader was injured. We knew he wasn't going to be ready until the postseason, and we knew that he was already on the injured list. So this was something that we acquired Harrison Bader knowing all of these different variables, knowing that his timetable for return would be around the postseason. But Frankie Montas was pitching through injury. He's a guy that historically has had shoulder issues. Now, when you have a pitcher with shoulder issues who's pitching through pain and injury, that is not a good thing. That is not something that you can maintain. It's not something that is sustainable. He was always going to have something more serious end up biting him in the butt. And the Yankees decided to sign him anyway, or rather acquire him anyway. And now we're kind of asking questions. What the hell was the medical staff thinking? How did they pass him? How did this deal go through if he was already hurt and they were continuously using him despite that? Did Frankie Montas not say anything? What the hell was going on? Ryan, I want to hear your thoughts about this. Frankie Montas was your guy. We obviously were both very high on him. We did not see this. We did not know this happened or what he was dealing with at the time. We thought it was just maybe he was, assimilating and kind of getting used to being a Yankee and playing a Yankee Stadium in higher leverage situations. But instead, he was actually hurt the whole time, and now we're just finding out about it. So how does that make you feel, and do you think that the Yankees made a mistake acquiring him knowing that information?
I don't think the mistake was acquiring him. I think the mistake was pitching him through that injury. I look at those news, and it is deeply upsetting for multiple reasons. Number one, the New York Yankees had a stronghold on the American League East at the time. There was no reason to push a starting pitcher to pitch through injury. This isn't the first time the Yankees have done something where they've pitched a pitcher through injury and said pitcher has gotten more hurt and they lost that pitcher for a much more important stretch of the season. Ron Marinaccio pitched through a shin injury to end the year when the Yankees had already clinched the division. They lost Ron Marinaccio for the postseason. They could have used Ron Marinaccio. I look at game one as the prime example of the Yankees bullpen was very top heavy. It wasn't as deep because they had a lot of injuries. Game one of the ALCS, it was a back-to-back after the game 5 of the ALDS with a lot of the rain delays. They went back. Those were back-to-back days, right? They didn't have Clay Holmes, Wandy Peralta, Jonathan Loaiza available. If they could have had a Ron Marinaccio available in that tied game and not had to gone to Frankie Montas or Clark Schmidt, and this is no disrespect to Clark Schmidt or Frankie Montas as relievers, just that you trust Ron Marinaccio a little bit more. That's just natural, right? I have no problem, admitting that. As a fan of both as a fan of all three of those pitchers, Marinaccio is the one I trust the most as a reliever right now, and even at the time. You could have had him pitch in a crucial postseason game for you, and you don't know how that changes the outcome, right? If you're going into the ninth inning tied, right, or the extra innings tied, you don't know how that outcome changes. It's deeply upsetting that they decide to pitch a guy through injury. It's stupid. It's reckless. There's no excuse for it. It's awful. There's no answer to this. There's no way to look at this and say, well, he was pushing himself. He's trying. He can have that mentality. Frankie Montas, as a competitor, as an athlete, can have the mentality that he wants to pitch and be their first team. I completely understand that. That is how athletes are. That is how athletes act. That is the pride, the ego. People are like, oh, this guy's so egotistical. This guy's so prideful. This guy doesn't think. You're a professional baseball player. You're gonna have an ego, right? The dude throws 98. If I threw 98 miles an hour and had a nasty splitter, I'd have an ego too. You know what I mean? As a medical staff, as a coaching staff, as an organization, that's your responsibility to make sure that pitcher doesn't let himself get more injured or allow his mentality or allow that competitive nature pitchers have and players have and athletes have to cause them to get more injured. That's the organization's issue. Yes, the Yankees got Frankie Montas at a discount at the trade deadline. They didn't have to trade a Peraza. They didn't have to trade a Jason Dominguez. They didn't have to trade an Anthony Volpe, but that's because he was injured. You can IL him for if you put him on the 15-day IL or you IL'd him for the entire month of July and or the entire month of August even. I'll go even that far. If he only pitched in September, but I knew he was healthy, I'm taking that. Any Yankee fan would take that. Because end of the day, Frankie Montas did more harm than good when he actually pitched because he was pitching through injury. If you look at a lot of the starts he had, he really only has those starts against Boston and the Mets as ones that you look at and say he positively contributed to a win. Every other start, he cost the Yankees games. And looking at it, it's an injury thing, right? You could have prevented that. You could have not pitched him. This isn't even a matter of don't trade for him because I wanted to trade for him. I'm not going to walk that back. What I'm going to walk back is not even walk back. You knew he was injured and you still pitched him. What goes into that? What goes into that decision making? That doesn't make any sense. You lose an asset for however long you're going to lose him, probably until August. So you've basically had a damaged asset for almost a year because Frankie Montas was injured basically all last year and struggled and isn't going to pitch in the first half. So you've basically thrown away an entire year of Frankie Montas just to pitch him in games where you're up double digits in your division. It doesn't make sense to me.
And like you said, sometimes you have to save players from themselves. You know what I mean? Sometimes you have to save them from themselves. These guys want to play, right? If you go ask Aaron Judge and he's dealing with a toe injury, or DJ LeMahieu dealt with a toe injury last year, and ask him, do you want to sit? He's going to say, no, I don't want to sit. I want to go play in the playoffs. I want to go make an impact on this team. I want to play. That's what these guys want to do. And if you're a medical staff for the Yankees and you have a pitcher who traditionally has shoulder issues, and he's fighting through one right now and you know about it, it's an easy decision. You shut him down until the playoffs, Instead, they allowed him to keep pitching, and he got so injured that he couldn't even feature during the postseason, and we ended up just giving away Ken Waldichuk for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, literally no reason. Montas said he's hopeful that he can make a comeback this year and pitch for the Yankees, but let's be honest right now. How much of an impact is he going to have coming off a full year rehabilitating from arthroscopic surgery on his shoulder? How much can we expect from him? How much value are we going to get out of Frankie Montas at this point in time? Probably none, guys. Probably none. He's not going to be ready to pitch a full workload in August, right? He's not going to be starting during the postseason, having missed a full season. This is a guy who maybe you bring in out of the bullpen for an inning, but even then, who knows what he's going to do? Coming off of not pitching, going right into a high leverage situation in the postseason where we don't really trust him. He's never really pitched in those areas before. He has like one postseason experience in his career. Maybe he doesn't even have any at all. How do you trust him? So Ryan, knowing all of this now, what do you expect from him this season? Do you think he can actually make an impact here? In my opinion, optimistic at best. I think there's maybe a 50-50 shot he makes a comeback, but it's even lower that he actually performs well, having missed a full year and then being thrown into high leverage moments where, you just really don't know where he's psychologically going to be at and how much he trusts his arm at that point in time. His stuff is nasty when he's healthy, but can we really depend on him? I would say that I'd rather go with the narrative that we should not expect him to do anything, right? We should be preparing to not have Frankie Montas at all. We should not be preparing to have him at any point this season because that's likely what's going to happen. How do you perceive kind of where the Yankees may go in terms of using him down the stretch?
Yeah, so the mentality I've had since the injury is you can't rely on Frankie Montas to come back and pitch well for you. However, it is a possibility. I think this stuff is elite. I still, I'd like to see what it looks like post-surgery. The reports were that they didn't have to touch the rotator cuff, which is really good news for him. But, the thing that is going to come back the latest is command, right? Command takes a decent amount of time. It's not a 3-start thing. I was listening to Rates and Barrels by Eno Soros and Derek Van Riper of The Athletic, and, they were talking about, guys post-injury, specifically talking about Luis Severino, actually. And they mentioned, velocity is one of those things that come back earlier than command, which is a little bit like people really don't anticipate that. They think it takes like a year for velocity to come back. Typically it takes about 3 or 4 major league starts before it stabilizes. So you're not going to be worried about Montas' stuff if it comes back normal. But the command is what you're worried about because that takes time. Command, poise, it's all about repetition. He's not going to be throwing for 9 to 10 weeks, right? That's really tough on someone. I know that, I'm upset about the situation, but I want to look at it from the perspective, moving forward, because the Yankees can't undo that. The Yankees can't go back in time and change the fact that they didn't pitch Montas, that they pitched Montas through injury, or that they allowed Montas to pitch through injury. But what you can do, you can go out there and you can, rehab him properly, and you can try to see, in what way he can help you, even if it's as a reliever, right? You can never have too much pitching. We're looking at this rotation right now. I'm going to go through the list of guys that are candidates to be in the rotation, are going to definitely get starts this year. You have Domingo Germán, Clark Schmidt, battling for the 5th spot. Nestor Cortez, Luis Severino, Carlos Rodon, Garrett Cole. Outside of Garrett Cole, all of those guys, Nestor Cortez is also an exception here, but outside of those two guys, all of those other guys have had major surgeries or major injuries over the last few years. Germán missed the first part of 2021 with an injury, or first part of 2022 with the shoulder issue. In 2021, he missed time with an injury. Clark Schmidt missed, basically his 2021 season was wiped away with injuries to his shoulder. Severino's obviously had Tommy John. Rodon has had Tommy John, and he's had injuries as well. And Nestor Cortez, he hasn't thrown 180 innings in a season. It's really only Garrett Cole that you're confident is going to get you 32 starts and 200 innings, right? That's not a diss to the Yankees pitching staff. That's just the reality of it. They rank pretty high in terms of injury percentile. You're going to need Frankie Montas to pitch some games for you, whether it's out the bullpen, whether it's as a starter, even as an opener, whatever it may be. He's going to need to pitch for the New York Yankees. The Yankees are going to need pitching depth. They're going to call on a guy like Johnny Brito to pitch for them. They're going to call on a guy like Matt Crook to pitch for them, not just as relievers, but as starters as well. We saw J.P. Sears last year. We saw Ryan Weber last year, right? Like, the Yankees are going to throw out guys that you don't typically expect to start. Having Frankie Montas scheduled to at least come back during the regular season is a help, but as you said, you can't rely on this guy to necessarily pitch. And it's no diss to Montas. It's just how things are post-injury.
Yeah, it's just being realistic too. Can we really expect a guy coming off a full season off? And like you said, maybe his velocity returns, but the command and, maybe I'd rather go with a pitcher like Germán or, whether it be Severino out of the bullpen or even Clark Schmidt, someone who's like really had a full year's workload, given they actually do maintain their health. Michael King, another guy coming back from injury, looked phenomenal in his appearance last week. So right now, I'm looking at who we do have, and I'm not looking at ultimately what we don't have, and that's probably Frankie Montas. But guys, I'd love to hear perspectives below in the YouTube comments. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.